On this episode of 10 with Ty...
Like, you know how they say a man's not a plan?
Isn't a man is not a plan? Well, I've never had to say that, I'll be honest, but I like it. Bernadette Janson helps women build wealth through renovating.
Having a loving relationship is no insurance policy.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
And has a great strategy for getting young adults onto the property ladder.
They got the loan, we put in the cash, they get the first 100,000. That's our goal.
Is this your famous smashed avocado theory?
It is. It's not just the money, it's building that entrepreneurial spirit. We don't have time to fight because we've always got a project on the go.
But flipping property isn't her only money-making pursuit.
So basically, we've spent $100,000 on a website about toilets.
That wasn't your worst investment?
No.
It's all coming up on 10 with Ty. Hi, I'm Tyron Hyde, the CEO of Washington Brown, the property depreciation expert. Now, I'm a qualified quantity surveyor and also a best-selling author who's helped hundreds of thousands of property investors over the years pay less tax through depreciation. I'm also an avid investor, which is why I created the podcast series 10 with Ty, where I ask the smartest people I know the same 10 questions to unlock the keys to their success and hopefully leave a playbook for my family and your family too about investing. Now, this podcast is general in nature and not specific to your financial circumstances. We always recommend you sit down with an accountant or financial planner before making any investment decisions. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to 10 with Ty. Joining me today is Bernadette Janson. She's a serial renovator. She hosts a podcast called She Renovates, runs a company called School of Renovation, which helps property investors achieve the maximum profit they can on property investment and renovation, I believe. Bernadette, is that correct?
Yep, that is absolutely true.
That's good. Now, I read that you did your first renovation at the age of 13.
So I use the term very loosely because it was pretty much a makeover, but I lived on a farm, and as you may or may not know, farmers don't like to spend too much money on their home.
Right.
All the money goes into the business. And so if I wanted to change my environment, I needed to do it myself, which I did. And I was hooked from that time onwards. And I also married Stephen, who comes from 40 years of building. And so we have, charted a path with property and construction.
Yeah, right. Sounds great. And the School of Renovation, how does that help property investors?
So basically, our target market is women who are over 40, and it's not like we turn other people away, but I think that's who I had in mind when I started it. Because as you probably know, women are not in great shape financially as a whole. Many have come through life, have not really focused on their own financial well-being, have brought up families, often end up single again. And in fact, women over 50 are overrepresented in the homelessness statistics. So I felt that there was an opportunity. And even for me, I was pretty much dependent on my husband for my retirement, and while we were all going along okay, that was fine. But if, anything happened to him, then that wasn't going to work. And so I had this desire to be independent. So how we help our people is to really arm them with the tools to make up ground quickly using renovating in terms of what they buy, and to improve its cash flow and also improve its value so that they can move on to and grow their portfolio.
That's fantastic, and it's like renovation with a good cause.
Yeah.
Right, that's great. What made you think of starting that?
To be honest with you, I was bored and lonely because
I wasn't expecting that.
Well, you work on your own on projects. You've got, you can't be lunching every day of the week because all your friends are working. And I really wanted to do something that was a bit more outward looking, sort of beavering away on a project on your own, for your own benefits, fine. But I wanted to do something that was a bit bigger than that and have a community. So selfish reasons.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So 10 with Ty, just a bit of a brief recap of what this is about. As you know, my father lost all his money in a company called Estate Mortgage, and what I'm trying to do with this podcast is to ask the smartest people I know 10 questions, the same 10 questions for everyone, and hopefully I'll be able to leave a bit of a roadmap for my daughter or your kid for financial security. And hopefully my daughter will read it one day or listen to this podcast series, and she might learn from it, and hopefully won't end up in the same position that my father ended up with, which killed him in some ways. So are you ready to play 10 with Ty?
I am absolutely ready to play, and thank you for including me in this project.
Thank you. All right, I've got a little thing here, button I press here. This is how we start 10 with Ty. All right, wait, here we go. All right, so question number 1, Bernadette. What has been your best investment?
Okay, so my best investment has really been the home that we currently live in. So as a renovator, you tend to buy and sell too much. Well, you tend to sell too much because the whole idea of flipping is very adrenaline driven. There's something really nice about having that chunk of money. But I was looking around for property. I was looking around for a project actually. And Stephen and I had this idea that we're going to downsize at some stage. So I thought we really should look at buying something in the suburb where we're planning to live so that we're sort of staying abreast with the market there. And I was going around looking at properties in Redfern, and I found this warehouse conversion that had been on the market for months and months because it was overpriced. And I thought, okay, well, I think this is quite good because it's ground floor is a separate property, so that could be on Airbnb or separately rented. And then, and it's big enough because we've got 4 kids, so I needed something biggish. And so we bought it as an investment property thinking that we may downsize to it, but not really sure. And as it's turned out, we've had it now for about 10 years, I think. And we had it rented out for a few years, and then we did eventually sell our house and downsize into it. But for every year we've owned it, it's delivered around about $250,000 in capital growth.
Wow.
And I know that because our neighbour who has the identical property just sold so I know what the sale price was.
Right.
And it really brought home to me, like I'm a bit of a slow learner, the value of picking the right area. And like I've done lots of good buys, but this really brought home to me how much you're losing when you sell something. So yeah, over the last few years, $2.5 million extra equity.
I think sometimes developers do the same thing. They sometimes I look at some of the developers that we've worked with and thought, if you just kept a lot of your properties, you would have had more money, you would have had more success than when you try and, because developers' motto is try and flick and flicker. But sometimes some of their success would have just been holding a lot of properties and drawing the equity in that development and then doing the next development with that equity rather than trying to sell them all, moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, you sort of get into a mindset around it and don't really, think about it. So that's definitely been my best.
Cool. Now, question number 2. Now, I've learned more from my worst investments than I have from my best investments. So I want to ask you, Bernadette, what has been your worst investment?
Okay, I'm not going to call this an investment. I'm going to call it a decision, but it's the same thing. So I did my first small development, like probably about 30 years ago, and like everything wrong, was taking the kids to school, saw this house down the road, thought it had demolition potential, bought it, demolished it, turned 1 into 2. And so when we came, we intended to sell them, and when we came to go to market, I don't know, no market dies like the Adelaide market does because we're in Adelaide at the time. Anyhow, we couldn't get our price for them, and because I'd done no research, we just thought this was a good thing to do. And in the end, we pretty much fire saled them. We sort of covered the cost, and the reason we did that was because we're about to have our 4th baby, and this is just so bad. I just really, shouldn't be admitting to it. But anyhow, we're about to have our fourth baby, and we needed a new car. And I can't stand debt on that sort of stuff. So I wanted to pay cash for the car. And so we had to sell the apartment, the 2 villas, in order to be able to do that, or so I thought. And so as a result, like, it was just so stupid. And now when I look back on that, we could have easily refinanced it. Like, and, you know, even if we had have negatively geared those properties, we could have easily held them. And of course, in the years following that, they went up exponentially, and because they were really nice. And yeah.
It pays not to look back at some of the properties you've sold in over time and don't go on RP data and see what they're worth today. It doesn't make you feel very good.
That doesn't upset me so much as what the reasoning behind it.
Right.
And, you know, like, obviously I've learned a lot since then, but at that time I was so naive and knew nothing about, you know, finance and all the tricks of the trade, which obviously I do now. So it annoys me, but that would be the worst thing I've ever done.
Do you own an investment property? Washington Brown has helped over 250,000 property investors pay less tax with the depreciation schedule. Visit washingtonbrown.com.au to pay less tax today.
Number 3, what has been the most valuable investment advice you've ever been given?
Okay, so the best advice I got from my mum, who was a farmer, widowed at 45, and after my father died, proceeded to buy every one of her neighbours' properties during the drought. And she used to always say to me, they're not making any more land, so don't sell anything. But I didn't really take enough notice of that.
Very good. Did you, so Susan, at 45, is that what kind of spurred a bit of the School of Renovation for 40-year-old women as well? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's when I realised, like, you know how they say a man's not a plan? Well,
I know I don't, but I like it.
that's in female empowerment land.
Right, okay.
But I just really got that. I understood that having a loving relationship is no insurance policy.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
That's great. I love it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Isn't it man is not a plan? Well, I've never had to say that, I'll be honest, but I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
If you've got a daughter, you probably, that would be a good one to wheel out.
Okay, I like it. Number 4. Okay. What would be your best ideal portfolio mix of commercial property, Bitcoin, shares, etc.?
To be honest with you, I don't like shares. I think in terms of investing in the stock market, I think, what are they called? Equity bonds are better, more stable, 9%, I think. They average over a length of time. In terms, I also don't know much about commercial property, and I'm not interested in it. So I think you've got to be interested in what you invest in, because otherwise you're too dependent on advisors. So I'm a great believer I love high growth areas like inner city, even large rural centres. But I also then love the whole coastal Airbnb, the country type property. So, and the other thing that I have been doing a lot of recently is investing in websites.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you're going to die when I tell you this, but my marketing guy and I have been doing a lot of learning around it, and we decided that we would buy a bigger site to get a bit of an understanding of how they go, because mainly we're growing our own. But we bought this website for $100,000 on renovations, but as it's turned out, the ranking content is all on toilets. So basically, we've spent $100,000 on a website about toilets.
That wasn't your worst investment.
No.
Okay. So how
the only thing I would say about that is, I know they do say it is an investment asset class, but it's not the sort of investment you can set and forget.
Because, so I'm just curious. Yeah. So what you buy a website, but how do you manage it? How do you make money out of the website?
So this one was already making money. So we paid now you try and get a real estate investment to do this. You paid $100,000 and it was bringing in around about $2,900 a month.
Well, no, it's 36 grand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
36%.
Yeah.
Not bad.
And
What, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to. You have to.
well, you do actually, because if you don't, that won't stay. Like other sites will come and take over your. Although I think I don't think I should say. I'm not going to tell you what our top ranking article is because it's too terrible. But so what we need to do is, and we are doing this, is updating the content that's already there and adding new content. So there's a thing called topical authority where you become an authority on a particular topic. So clearly we're a topical authority on toilets at the moment. So we're extending that out to bathrooms and then further on. And so you need to keep that up. I learned the other day, to have a website that's bringing in $20,000 a month, you need to have around 1,700 articles on it. And obviously these are SEO optimized articles. To have 1,700 articles, if you were to write them longhand, like I know we have AI now, but if you were to write them manually, that will cost you about $92,000 to get that written. But you know, $20,000 is $240 a month, a year. It's not too bad.
So just before I move on next, I'm just a little bit confused. So people go on the website, and how are you making money? From the ads, or are you making money from people then buying products and getting it fulfilled?
So at the moment, it's just Amazon affiliate, which is lousy, and display ads.
Right.
You know those websites that you go on and you hate them because they've got those flashing ads? Well, it's like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So there you go.
Cool. All right. Question number 5. Let's say you're 20 years old today, and you had $20,000. You've worked at Macca's for a couple of years. You saved up 20 grand. How would you tell yourself to invest that $20,000?
Okay, I've got 2 answers to that one.
Okay.
Firstly, if I was going to invest it in a property myself, particularly if I was in Melbourne, I'd go and buy a unit in Melbourne. Probably not one in a high rise, but lots of low. Like I've been looking around Melbourne, and there's a lot of units on the market there that, like 3 or 4 years ago, sold for $350,000 and now selling for $250,000. So normally I wouldn't say a unit would be a great investment, but when you've only got 20 grand, you've got to, you know, you have to get started somewhere, and you can't really afford to be doing too much else with it. But the other suggestion I would make, and this is something we've been doing with our kids, is team up with my parents to do a project. And so what we've been doing is, so for the first 2, we did flips. So they got the loan, we put in the cash, and because we have a line of credit set up specifically for projects, we grab the cash, we do the project, we'd sell it, they get the first 100,000. That's our goal. And then if there's any more, we get the rest. So the last 2, we made 100,000 for the second one, 150 for the first one. So they get their 100,000 chunk, and then they take it off and do what they want with it. And I think that's a great strategy, because it's not just the money, it's building that entrepreneurial spirit. It's the family. Like, we don't have time to fight because we've always got a project on the go.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And they're learning as well, right?
They are, yeah. They are.
Is this your famous smashed avocado theory?
It is.
It is.
It is, yeah.
I was reading about that and I love it. No, I think that's great advice. Thank you.
Well, we're on number 3, and I'll talk about that one in a minute because that comes into my next, one of my other answers. Yeah.
All right, number 6 of 10 with Ty. Let's flip it on its head now. You're 50 years old, and as you know, a lot of people are going to be inheriting some property because our parents have been able to buy property when it was more affordable. So you're 50 years old, you've inherited $500K from your parents. How would you tell yourself to invest that $500K?
Okay, so I would probably invest that in a micro development. Because I'm a renovator, I love to use renovating to get more bang out of our buck. So what I would do is buy a house on a block that was big enough to subdivide, hopefully 1 into 3. So we have the house on one and then 2, if it was a corner block, 2 on the back. I would renovate the house and sell it off after I'd subdivided it, and so I could cash flow the project. Okay, so then I would build on the back, and the 2 on the back I would hold because I would have high equity without my money being in it. I could revalue and pull the money out. That should give you something where you've got 20 to 30% equity in the property with none of your own money. And I think that that's a great strategy for getting traction quickly. Because if you go and buy someone else's development, you're paying retail price, so you're paying over the odds. Whereas if you can do it your own and you can use the reno to increase your equity in it, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you done one of these yourself?
I'm doing one at the moment. I have done them before, but I'm doing one at the moment with our third daughter. So we're doing this. This is an Avo Smash strategy as well. But this time we're putting a duplex on the back and we'll each have an investment property out of it. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. I love it. And any particular areas out of curiosity that?
Yeah, well, that one we're doing in Echuca because we needed to work to a budget. So we bought a block for $542,000. It didn't get flooded, so during the floods. And, so we just started the reno. We'll finish that in July and then we'll be moving on to the next stage of it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, number 7. Let's say you found the DeLorean. You can travel back in time and see your 20-year-old self, Bernadette. What would you tell 20-year-old Bernadette about investing for the next 80 years?
I would tell myself to listen to my mother and not sell so much. Okay?
I love it. That's right, everyone. Listen to your mother. Unfortunately, my mother passed away, but I can't. She still rings in my head sometimes, though, you know.
Yeah, I bet she does. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, listen to your mother. All right, number 8. What legacy, Bernadette, do you want to leave your family and your community?
I guess the main legacy I want to leave them is to leave them empowered to use property to get them the life they want. I don't particularly want to give my kids everything, you know. I want them to learn to be independent, but to be smart about, and I think that's happening. Yeah, to be smart about how they deal with property and money, and so that they live the life of their creation.
And I think that would start what you're doing with the smashed avocado theory. I think you're instilling that with them at an early age to go along that path.
Absolutely. It's definitely made, like, our number 3 they'd already bought their house very young, and they would sort of have their heads switched, you know, screwed on properly. Our eldest daughter is an analyst, and she was big into shares and really didn't think much about property. But since we did that project together, she's, you know, like, she is just completely turned around.
Yep.
Saved, you know, bought a better property for themselves, saved up to do a reno, and then figured out, hey, we'll buy an investment property before we do the reno, which I thought was smart because, you know, that investment property's grown a lot through COVID.
Yep.
So, yeah, it is happening.
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, number 9. What does success look like to you?
Success looks like having choice, being able to do the things that you want to do, having the time to do them, and having the money to do them without having to stress. So I'm not particularly, I don't want to be incredibly wealthy. I have no interest in being, I just want to be able to live the life I want.
On your
I'm
terms.
over having things, and
Live the life on your terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. All right, the last question. I guess this is a little bit about what podcast is about, not losing money. So Warren Buffett is quoted as saying, rule number 1 of investing, never lose money. And rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. So what he didn't say, though, Bernadette, was how do we follow this rule? He didn't give us a roadmap. or plan. So how do you follow Warren Buffett rules?
Look, I see this quite a bit because, in our business, you can get into trouble pretty quickly. The market only has to have a sniffle. And, if you're planning or working on a flipping strategy, if the market flinches a bit, then you get to sale and you can't get your sale price. But I believe that whatever you buy into, you need to really workshop the downside. Because I know a lot of times we'll say, if it doesn't sell or if this goes wrong, we'll just rent it out. But what doesn't happen is working out what that looks like. Can you afford to rent it out and hold it? I completely agree with Warren Buffett that you shouldn't sell, against your wishes. You shouldn't sell because you have to. But that means being really, creating a really robust plan B. And it's not just a throwaway item. It's sit down, work out what the return is on that property on long term, work out what it is on short term, so that you really know if you're in that situation that you can actually afford to hold that property. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there's one thing I didn't tell you, though. There is a bonus question 11, and it's going to be specific to everyone's kind of niche, right? So I make it up and I don't tell you. So with you, obviously it's going to be about renovation.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, and for the listeners to know, what are the 3 most important things you look for before you buy a property to renovate?
Okay, firstly, I look at its condition, the property's condition, and how much it's going to cost to bring it up to scratch. Okay, so often when people are buying renovators, they think, don't worry about having a building report because we're going to renovate it anyhow. But you can sink a lot of money into a house before you start seeing anything. That's the first thing. The next thing I would look at is, can I deliver an outcome that is going to add significant value to the end user, both aesthetically and also in function? So can I make a small tweak on that that's going to really expand its use? Can I turn a 3-bed, like a 2-bedder into a 3-bedder? Can I create a big open plan area without having to go to full structural renovation, because then you're bringing in a lot of risk and cost? And the third thing I would probably look at is this probably should be the first one, but the location of the property, and is it somewhere where my target market is going to want to live, and can I turn it into their dream home? So they are my 3 things.
I love it.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. I guess, yes, with the renovation, you've got to make sure if you're spending that much money that the market does warrant that property. You still get the market for that property when you spend that money. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. My big takeaway there, just remember to listen to your mother, as Bernadette says. I've really enjoyed having you on and your insightful answers. Well, where can people contact you? I didn't forget.
Okay, the School of Renovating, www.schoolofrenovating.com.
Yep.
And if you've got any questions, I'm always happy to answer them.
And and just to briefly recap, their courses on there, or they can engage you personally, or
all of the above.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, well, again, thank you so much for joining me.
All right.
Ted with Ty. Have a great day. Thank you.
See you later.
If you own an investment property, then Washington Brown can help you pay less tax with an ATO-compliant depreciation schedule. Visit washingtonbrown.com.au to pay less tax today.